And good evening, everybody, and welcome to tnsradio.com. The time is now 23:09, and welcome to Sunday evening's show, wherever you're listening in the world. And hopefully you can hear me okay. Any problems, let me know. Both players are on, slow player and fast player, both on, so you should be able to hear there. And Nala is wondering who I'm interviewing. I'm not interviewing anybody tonight so far, Nala. To be honest, tonight I wanted to go through some situations myself, and I wanted to go through some things that I think people will find useful. You see, a lot of the things I think people are coming across on the internet, while interesting, they're not useful. So really what I wanted to do was to try to give you an idea about how you can actually make information work for you. You know, Darrell O'D, for example, is great at this, regardless as to what you may or may not think of as information. He's great at getting it out there and getting it into people so that people are inclined to use it. So I'd like to try and express to you tonight how you can do things, as opposed to how you can just sit passively back and let stuff happen. Now, you know, a lot of people talk to me and they seek solutions for their problems from me. And I keep telling people, look, I don't have the solution for your problem. All I can do is talk about the way everything's been set up and to try and give you, as best I know, or as best I see, and to try and give you some information to see if you can put it into action somehow for you. You see, if you don't know how the game is played, there's no way of... yes, I've got pips on. There we go. Hold on. I'll take care of that now. If you don't know how the game is played, how are you supposed to play? On top of that, if you don't know there is a game being played, again, how can you operate? So, look, I'm going to take things back to the beginning again. I'm going to do it real simple, straightforward, for the benefit of those who know nothing. Let's assume you know nothing, right? Let's assume you've lived under your mother and father's wing all your life. You've hit 18, say, and you've never needed to sign a contract, borrow money, get a driving license, join the army, military, Garda Síochána, fire brigade, nothing. You basically are 18 years of age, and you've decided, okay, I'm going to leave home. You've no mortgage or bills or any of that stuff, and you're going to leave home. You're going to fly the coop, fly the nest. And you say to your father, okay, or maybe your father would say to you, okay, son, before you go, you're going to need this. Now, this is most likely going to be the birth certificate. There's nothing you can do. There's no point to start from until you have your birth certificate to enter into commerce. You can try, but if you try and engage in commerce somehow, and you haven't given any reference or relation in the past to a birth certificate, it will not happen. Have I still got them flipping pips on? Okay, just double checking. There we go. Aha, okay, somebody sent me a PM when they sent me a PM, the pips go off. Okay, so you're 18 and you have a birth certificate. Now let's say you think you want a job. You know, your father doesn't have land that you can use. He lives in a 3-bed semi-terrace house or whatever, just like most people do. Well, as far as we can tell, most land on the land known as Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland, etc., it's all fenced off and allocated, and different people are using it for different things. So there's no kind of wild, empty land that you can just say, hey, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to start growing and sheep herd and goat herd and whatever. There's no land you can do that. So in an ideal world, for example, if there was extra land and nobody was using it, hey, that'd be great, right? You could go and you could stick the birth certificate in your back pocket, whatever, forget about it and go and do what you want to do. And if you have neighbours, you could trade and whatnot according to the rules of barter, or you could use natural law whereby you can steal from each other if you so choose, or you can work in harmony, or you can completely ignore each other. There's always 3 options, folks. I think a lot of people need to understand that. There's always 3 options. Never, ever, only 2. But anybody who's trying to deceive you will always only offer you one or another option. They'll never offer you the 3rd option. And really what I want people to see is that there's this 3rd option. Okay, so we're at basics still. 18, and you're outside your mother and father's home, birth certificate in pocket, and you think, well, okay, my father didn't give me any currency. I did want to leave, so I'm operating on my own here. Well, you could be forgiven for thinking that the first thing you needed was a bank account. Now, how difficult or easy do you think it might be to get and open and obtain access to a bank account? You see, they don't actually give you a bank account. You beg for access to control one. It's still their account. But perhaps, let's say, for example, we're talking ideal world here, and the bank manager looks at you and he thinks, well, okay, 2 arms, 2 legs, fit young fella. No reason why he shouldn't be able to make it in the world. So, okay. Now, they say they'll open an account for you, which is true, because the accounts were closed to you beforehand. So, what process do they go through to open an account for you? They don't tell you they're going to create a new account and give it to you. That's not what they say, right? Heard me just pouring out a drink here. So that's not what they say. They don't say we're going to create a brand new account and give it all to you, and you can be your own agent on this account, and we might do business, but, you know, you can move and take the account and do what you will with it. That's not what happens. Now, to get this position, you see, what a lot of people don't realize is they're not going to just give access to an account to just anybody. No. They want to make sure there's a vested interest in the account. So how are they going to do that? Well, think about it. Let's imagine you're in the bank's position for a moment. This is a great way to try and get your head into what's happening out there, folks. Always, intellectually, if you can, switch positions to try and work out what the other guy is after. Maybe they're not after anything. Maybe just to understand their position. Okay. The only way they're going to grant you access to an account, to open an account to you, is they give you an application form where you are applying, you are begging. It's begging. You beg. Oh, please, 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 make an account accessible to me. And they do. But they only do so by hiring you, using you, if you will, usury. See, what they do is they hire you. They make you a real low-level employee, because you have to be in the business of banking to operate a bank account from inside the bank. How else could you do it? Banks are private corporations, folks. They're private. As in, they're privately owned companies. Well, if you want to access and operate in the company, the only way you can do so is if you're an employee of the company. I know they don't tell you this. Maybe they want you to work this out on your own or by yourself. I don't know. But if somebody can come up with another way, using contract law and studying contract law to see if there's any other way, you know, using any legal language you like, that you can operate a bank account without being an employee of the bank, no matter how low, I'd love to hear from you. Now, once you get into that position, I'm assuming most of you who are listening at the moment agree. I don't see anybody disagreeing in the chat box at the moment. Okay. So you're now real low-level bank employee. Well, bank employee is held accountable for what they do, right? I mean, if they hire you in Tesco's, for example, and they say, okay, we're going to put you in charge of the meat department. And for convenience, what they're going to do is they're going to now refer to it anytime they send you a communication. They're going to call it, let's say your name is John Doe. They're going to send the communication to John Doe's meat department. Hey, John Doe, your department is in disarray. They don't mean your own private department. It's still Tesco's department. They're telling you your department is out of balance or in disarray according to the contract, the employment contract. They know it's still theirs, but they let you control it. Okay, so let's get back to where I was. So I'm saying, basically, logic and reason. This is not me saying it. I'm saying logic and reason surely or clearly specifies and shows the only possible relationship that you can be in with Tesco's. If you're taking care of the meat department and they're calling it John Doe's meat department, and if you think your name is John Doe, well, do you really think it's yours? If there's a crisis in the meat department, wouldn't you go, whoops, crisis in the meat department, I've no more meat on the shelves. I'll go to the boss and say, hey boss, I'm running out of meat on these shelves here. Where do we get more? Now, same thing, let's apply the same thing to a bank. Well, they'll send you a letter one day perhaps. A statement is usually what they send. You see, Tesco's, for example, might send you a statement to say, hey, John Doe, we hired you to look after the meat department, and you're shy of meat. There's no meat there. We need meat. You agreed that you keep meat on the shelves. Where's the meat? Now imagine if this was the situation in Tesco's and you went out and you worked hard and bought meat with your own money and brought it back to Tesco's and put it on the shelf and said, there you go. There's the meat. Well, they've got no complaint now, right? They have no complaint. They'll say, that's fine, wonderful, meat on the shelves, lovely, meat on the bones. Well, it's the same thing in the bank. Except they didn't tell you that you didn't have to go and put the money into the account. You don't have to. That's not part of the contract, believe it or not. Most people don't look at the contract. But if you actually go find a bank application form, any bank, doesn't matter. Read through it real careful. And then have a look on the website, see if there are any extra conditions. And then you try and work out, when you apply the 7 requirements for contract law, for a contract to be valid, bona fide, and in existence, even if it is fictitious, you know what I'm saying, even if that's the state of play between your mind and their mind, see if you end up with a valid, lawful contract. I can't see how you can. Seems to me it's void ab initio. That's a fancy word from the beginning, as in from the initial, the first. Now, interestingly, I'm just me on the chat box posted there. Well, if I'm employed by the bank, I think I'll be handing in my resignation. Well, I'm just me in the chat box. That's, in my opinion, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Because, for example, if you worked in Tesco's and you couldn't keep the meat shelves supplied in John Doe's meat locker department in Tesco's, and they keep saying you agreed you'd do this, you agreed you'd do that, you agreed you'd take care of all the meat in the meat department, but you never agreed to put me in there. You never agreed to put money, finance, currency, call it what you will, into the account. There is no obligation on you to put any finance of any description that I can find And I've looked at a lot of bank contracts, a lot of application forms. I can't find anywhere where they say that there's an obligation on you to fill up their account for them. Now, I'm just me said, it's an agreement, not a contract, which is unenforceable. No. An agreement contracts are all the same thing. It's, look, if you agree with something and I agree with something, we have a meeting of the minds. That's contract. But it's got to be balanced. It's got to have the same elements on both sides. Agreement contract, same, splitting hairs, really. Effectively, it's the same thing. There are differences, but I'm trying to keep it real basic here tonight, folks. I want this real basic and real clear, because when this goes into the podcast, I want anybody who is listening, who comes up as a first-timer to tnsradio.ning.com, and for you to say, well, look, do you know anything? Well, if they would say, well, I don't know anything. Good. Listen to this podcast here. This one's going to be called VIN Basics 1, okay? Now, I'm doing this VIN Basics 1. Next week I'll be doing VIN Basics 2, leading up to the mathematically perfected economy demonstration that I'm going to do. So that's why I want this real clear in your minds before you attend. Hopefully you will attend. I'll get the location sorted soon. So, would it be reasonable to assume, if you were working for Tesco in the meat department, and you'd been putting meat on their shelves for years, and you were going out and working hard for it, and you were filling their shelves, and they say, when one day you can't get any more meat because the meat producers, the meat suppliers have turned off the supply, they're no longer slaughtering cattle, there's no more meat coming your way, and they say to you, hey, you're shy on your meat quota this month, where is the meat? And you say, well, I can't get any more meat because the meat producers have stopped slaughtering. And I can't slaughter myself. I can't create meat myself. And they say, we don't care. We don't care that it's impossible for you to get meat. We don't care. But we're not going to fire you. They don't tell you this. They don't explain this. They don't express this. But they don't fire you. You could potentially resign, right? As I'm just me said. But they don't fire you. What they do instead, they used to have an internal process for dealing with things like this. But you know what? Times being what they are, they decided to contract this administrative process out to a third party. They hired another company, if you will, to look after all this wayward employee administration, where employees haven't stuck to their contract, or they haven't, they're not performing as agreed or as they have been. And they call this the courts system, if you will. Now you see, they don't tell you that either. Well, logic and reason dictates that's what they are, because they just move you sideways into the court. Well, they must have some association with the courts, which they do. They do. Because when they hired you, with the birth cert, they allocated you another number. There was another account opened for you. They didn't tell you anything about this account either, but this account, they used to call them PRSI, PAYE, PPS. Call it what you will. There's a lot of different alphabet soups, if you will, that goes into these things. And you see, there's an insurance policy associated with this one. The PPS, personal or public personal services, or private personal service, or something like that. Public personal service, I think, is what they call it. And that's your number to go into service for the public. But what they didn't tell you, they don't mean what you think, as in the public. They didn't tell you they had a different meaning for the word public that you possibly can't comprehend. Therefore, this contract is most likely null and void too. You see, they didn't tell you they meant, by public, they meant everybody, all the other corporate entities that don't really exist in reality, but all these other corporate entities we're calling the public. You think that the public is all the people, but it's not. It is to us normally, in everyday conversation. But to the bankers and these guys in here, no. Public means basically corporations, miniature corporations. And you see, corporations can join together. Conglomerates. And you see, when you get this PPS number before you start employment, and I think even the banks ask for PPS numbers too, to open accounts, you have to go and beg for that too. So you have to go first port of call is to beg the state. You have to apply for one. You have to lower your standard. You have to lower yourself. You have to lower your status as a man living free. And you have to lower your status to corporate servitude. You have to go in and lie to them. You must lie to them. They won't give it to you otherwise, unless you lie. Now, why am I saying you're lying? They ask you, what is your name? And we tell them, well, Mr. John Doe, because most likely that's probably what you've been told your name is. In truth, there's no such thing as names, folks. A name is something you call something. But if you've never met anybody before and you see something and you know, let's imagine everybody else in the world would look at this thing and call it a square box. And if you've never met anyone else in the world and you're alone on your own desert island, you're going to look at it and maybe you might decide, hey, well, it's a round ball, I don't know, or it's a ball. Round ball, silly. Okay, just ball. See, there I go. So when you say John Doe, Mr. John Doe, that is my name, you've actually lied in reality because you don't actually know your name. Your parents didn't know your name. They called you something. Now, a lot of people think your parents gave you a name. They didn't give you a name. They pushed air up through their throat, made some utterances and grunts, and we think that's our name. It's not. It's just a calling. I mean, one of my dogs probably thinks his name is, you know, something like that. I do that and he thinks I'm calling him. And in fact, I am calling him. But another dog that's, you know, doesn't hang about here and that, you know, I could give the same whistle. He might look, but he's not going to come. Why? Because he won't recognize the calling. Even if his owner, inverted commas, comes along and whistles the same whistle, he'll recognize his owner's whistle over my whistle, even if it's a very similar whistle. So let's get back to banking. You've now been moved, you see. First you have to get your PPS number from the state, if you will, which is a corporation, trading as, yada yada. And they've broken that down into subdivisions from president, ministerial posts, you know, kind of like rays from the sun, if you get me, but going down like a cone. And under each one, the rays split into different sections, and then those rays split, and they split again, and they split again. And when they give you a PPS number, they start you off right down the very bottom of the pile. Right down the very bottom rung of the ladder. That's why you must climb the social ladder. See, when you're born into wealth, opulence, money, call it what you will, and your mother and father, when they set you onto the social ladder, they set you on 5 or 6 steps up because they've got money, control, power, etc. If you're just Joe Soap, John Doe, you start at the bottom. The very bottom. In fact, you're what the whole system is standing on. You're what the whole system relies upon and depends upon. But they don't want you to know that. So, they had to come up with a way, a means, if you will, to not hide it from you, because they do like this idea of having clean hands and not actually being responsible. So they say to you, what is your name? And you tell them, this is my name. And when you tell them John Doe or Mr. John Doe is my name, they take it that you have said something. To them, words become things. And then they write them on a document, and then they ask you to sign it. And you do. 99.99% of us have signed unconditionally. We gave them an unconditional signature. By that I mean you just wrote down, yep, John Doe. Not by John Doe or for John Doe or as John Doe, which would have been a bit more accurate, right? Because, you know now you're not actually John Doe, right? You're just you. I'm me, you're you, he's him. That's it. As far as we can tell, pretty much that's the reality, okay? So, here you are now, and you find yourself in this administrative process because the bank aren't happy with their employee, even though they never told the employee that the employee had to go and get all this finance and put it into the bank account to give to them, if you will. They never told you that. You just assumed you had to. They sent letters out telling Mr. John Doe to put money into the account, but they didn't tell you. They're hoping you just assume you're John Doe, and they're hoping you don't know any better, and you just apply your energy and yourself to the task. When, as I'm just me said in the chat box there, really all you gotta do is resign. Now, how do you resign? Well, I suppose you write down on a little bit of paper or something, I resign, and you address it, and you send it. Now, if you worked in Tesco's, in the meat department, and unbeknownst to you, you were going and working extra to put all this meat into Tesco's, into the meat department, and then one day you resign, and they send you a letter saying, hey, there's no meat on the shelves. We have an agreement. And you say, well, you hired me, right? So I've resigned. In other words, you did sign, now you're re-signing. So you signed up, and now you're re-signing. You're taking it off again to re-sign. Not resign. That's not the word, folks. It's to re-sign. Remove. Right? You got to move something, and then you can remove it. When you remove something, you take it away, right? When you re-sign, you take away the signature. It's kind of like nunc pro tunc, but it's not going back in time, if you will. It's doing it now. So when you say you resign, the moment you write I resign on a piece of paper and send it to them, then that's when you resigned. If they don't get it for a week or 2 weeks, that's nothing to do with you. You resigned the moment you said so. You quit, right? I'm not trying to say this is a good idea. I'm just saying, depending on your circumstance, you may want to consider this information. I'm not trying to encourage anybody to act or otherwise. I'm just saying it's a slightly different way of thinking about things, isn't it? Now, how can we demonstrate to you that this indeed, using logic and reason, is the case with banks? Okay, well, let's say, for example, you think you want a bank loan. Sure. A lot of people think they want bank loans. Okay. Well, you go back into the bank. You don't realize you're as an employee. And in fact, you don't want a loan, you want a mortgage. You found the property and you think, well, the only way I can get my hands on this property, or the only way I can get to use it, is to get a mortgage, right? A death grip. That's what mortgage means. Isn't that nice? Doesn't that make you all warm and fuzzy inside? A death grip. That's what mortgage means. So they tell me. So you go in and get yourself a death grip. But you see, In the bank, your employee status doesn't actually quite go that high. You're a very low-level employee. You don't have managerial function. And to create a loan account, that requires somebody with more oomph, if you will, more responsibility within the corporate structure. Not necessarily their corporate structure, but remember, they hire out some of these functions to other corporates and other corporate structures, kind of like, in fact, exactly like solicitors' companies, etc., etc. And so many people I've spoken to will tell you this is the case. They put the document, piece of paper, whatever you want to call it, down on the table, and they say, here you go, sign here, X, here, X, and here, X. They put the X's down on the document. Anybody with a mortgage, think back to when it came to the time where they wanted you to sign. Did they go XXX usually where it says the word signature? I mean, unless they think they're giving a 200,000 or 300,000 euro mortgage to an absolute, excuse my French, flippin' moron. I almost used French, I should say. Unless they think they're giving it to an absolute moron who can't read the word signature, that he requires an X on the document before he signs. Well, if that's the case, then clearly they must be giving it to somebody of diminished capacity, or at least that they believe it's somebody of diminished capacity. Now, if they believe you're of diminished capacity, intellectually that is, well, how can they call it a lawful contract? Doesn't add up, right? Logic and reason, again, doesn't add up. So, who signed and how did they sign? Well, if they sign first, and they do, with the X, you can sign with an X. There's a YouTube clip. You'll very clearly hear a man in a police station being told, oh, just put an X there. An X will do. We'll take that as a signature, and they will. They'll take it as a signature, as a sign of nature. Too damn right they will, because it is. Because you must press the pen to the paper. You must make the mark. You must. And once you make that mark, you are letting them know that you are in agreement. You have an accord. A contract has just been formed. So when they make the mark on the paper, ask yourself, are they not doing the same thing? They might think they're, I don't know, I mean, I've yet to find a solicitor who can explain to me exactly why they've put those marks on the paper. Even people in the bank don't seem to know exactly why, but they all do it. They've all been told to do it. You see, the truth is, I think they don't even explain to them what they're doing. They just say, oh, it's common practice. Standard procedure. You know yourself. Look, just do it, okay? You don't have to be told everything, right? Your job says you put the flippin' X there before they sign. Okay. And employee just goes, well, what the hell do I care? I'm getting a bonus here. I'm getting paid out of this. Sure, I'll put the X down. But usually that's somebody who's legally trained, usually up to 7 or 8 years, and usually, they know a thing or two about a thing or two. Law and legality, and let's face it, most of the time we haven't a flippin' breeze when it comes to this class of stuff. We haven't a clue. And yet they still get you to sign a legal document. And they know you're not legally trained. Now you might be thinking, but I brought my solicitor in there to represent me and to protect me. Really? Then why did he let you sign it? Why would your solicitor instruct you or allow you to sign something that's going to cause you harm or loss? They're not supposed to do that, right? Now maybe they might say, well, we didn't understand the economic system. That's bull for a start. Oh, they understood. They know. They all know, folks. They mightn't fully realize it, but deep down they know. A child can work it out in 2 minutes. It's simple. It works like this. The banks lend money to your entire nation at interest. your entire nation tries to pay back this money at interest. So if they lent you 100 million, you can't possibly ever pay them back 110 million because they only gave you 100 million. Now you can go and try and do trade with other countries to try and get 10 million from them. And that might be possible, and you might be able to pay it back 1 year maybe. But now the country you were trading with that you've managed to do for 10 million, they now owe too much. They're now in a worse position than you. And we call this competition, you see. We say, oh, it's competitive. You better believe it's competitive. Because it's dog eat dog. Business is war, folks. It's war. And there will only be one surviving. That's what happens. Big corporations gobble up little corporations. But you can step out. They don't tell you this. You can step out at any time. You can opt out of any contract at any time you wish. Once you do so correctly. So, for example, if you were cutting my grass, let's say I hired you to cut the grass in my garden every year, I don't know, 6 times during the summer or whatever. And you've been relying on this. And 1 year I think, well, things are a bit tight. I'm going to cut my own grass. And I said to you, it's okay, yeah, I'm going to cut my own grass from now on, thanks. Can you sue me? Well, perhaps you might try and engage a court case, but would you expect to win? You know, well, it's his grass and he can't afford to pay me, so he's no option. Well, he's going to go and cut it himself. You opt out of the contract. Cheerio. Bye. Thank you, but no thank you. It's real simple. I'm just going to go and have a look at some of the comments. Some comments have been popping up there in the chat box there. I'm just going to have a look at some of them. Okay. Well, there you go. Okay. Right. Some references to the TV series The Prisoner. So, as Alan put up there, for example, number 2 says, why did you resign? Prisoner. I don't accept. I didn't accept. Why did you accept? Number 2, you resigned. Prisoner, I rejected. Number 2, you accepted before you resigned. The prisoner, I rejected. Number 2, who? The prisoner, you. You see, in The Prisoner, they want to know why he resigned, why he took the signature off the document. They were having great fun with his signature on the document. They were really enjoying his using his skills. He took his skills away from them, and they were angry and upset, and they wanted to know why. So they took him, and they held him in the village. And they never told him where he was, just the village. But there's a reason they didn't tell him where he was. Specifically, they couldn't give a title, because then he would have something to act on. So they stuck with the village. That whole series is very interesting. So, okay, let's say you resign from your position at the bank, or you resign from your position at Tesco's, and they still try to pull you. They've already told the administrative process for wayward employees about you, but you've already resigned, and the administration process for wayward employees in Tesco that they've now rented out to, known as the court service, they come and get you. In fact, they hire another agency, known as An Garda Síochána, to come and physically grab a hold of you and pull you in there. What's the first thing they do? They say, name. What's your name? What they're saying, they may not realize it, they're saying, what's your employee status? What's your designation? What's your number? What are you? Not who are you. They say, what is your name? Not who are you. They don't say, who are you, right? Because they're contracted upstairs to the courts department as far as they're concerned, and the courts department have contracted sideways, if you will, with Tesco's. But you've resigned. You don't work for Tesco's no more. But if you go in there and you say, yeah, okay, I'm still a Tesco employee. If you give them your Tesco's identity number, well, as far as they're concerned, you must have changed your mind, right? You must have changed your mind about resigning. It's okay, everybody. He hasn't resigned. We can now put him through the administrative process that Tesco's have hired us to do. That's okay. We all get paid. Lovely. But how do you pay? Well, they know you have nothing. So what they do is they take pity on you. And, recall, they do say they interview you, right? They bring you for an interview. The Garda Síochána, for example, interview you. The corporate aspect of them. They bring you for a job interview. They don't tell you it's a job interview. They got a new job for you. Full accommodation, 3 square meals a day. Secure location. They'll even give you work. Hell, they'll even pay you. Meet lots of new friends. Develop intimate relations. You mightn't like some of them, but they might develop. But you'll be safe as houses. You won't get run over by a bus, right? They're protecting you. Why? Because of the insurance policy associated with the PPS number. Because that's where they get paid from. And when they send in all these liability orders, all these bills that they have to pay to hold you in that position, well, they send them up to the top of the pile. The top of the pile are the people who go to the foreign banks with the numbers, the people incarcerated, the people employed, and they say, look, we need to borrow money to pay for all this. Will you give it to us? And the banks, of course, say, certainly. Absolutely. Why? Because you know what? There's 4.5 million of them still left there. Maybe there's 4.25 million of them not in jail yet that we're not looking after. And we'll make the others pay the bill. How are we going to do that? Well, we'll tax them. How are we going to do that? Well, what we do is we borrow this money for them to give them benefits, at interest, of course, and then they'll pay that money that we eventually trickle down to them back to us in the form of taxes, and then there won't be enough to go around next year, right? Sure. Well, what's your solution? Don't worry, we'll just borrow more money, and the bank will give it to us. Won't you, bank? And what did the bank say? Yeah, of course we will. We won't hang you out to dry. We made a deal with you that we'd finance you. So we will finance you. But we want all your fish. Oh, okay. Oh, and we want all your forests. Oh, okay. Oh, and, yeah, we want all your oil and gas. Oh, wow, okay. Wow, this is getting tight. I'm running out of things here to give you. Don't worry. No, we'll still finance you. I mean, you don't want the system to collapse, right? Hell no. The government's going to say, no, we don't want the system to collapse. Hey, why don't we print our own money? The whisper goes around in government circles. You crazy? Don't ever suggest that again. Remember what happened to JFK. Oh, yeah. Wasn't he the guy that was shot in the head for... Well, they don't say exactly, but we do know. We're told, apparently, he had planned on printing interest-free money without the banks. He didn't want to play the game anymore. Bang. That's how that problem went away. Go and play a little tune, folks. Okay, somebody's asked me to talk about penalty points. Well, look, it's the same deal, folks. It doesn't matter what it is. The structure that's in place is identical in every way, shape, and form. It's like a scaffolding. They keep adding bits on, you see. Imagine a scaffolder starting, and he starts constructing. And he constructs the outline of the building in scaffolding poles, right? So they can build whatever they want to construct inside. But in theory, he could keep adding to the outside as well. It can go up and in and out and cross and around like the branches of a tree. That's why they have branches of government, because they all got tracked back all the way to the source, the trunk, which goes into the ground, the earth. The tiniest leaf on a tree branches all the way back to the trunk, which eventually goes back to source, which I suppose was the seed. And that's what they keep doing. Penalty points, same thing. You asked for a position in the what do you call it, the driving department? I don't know. Something like that. You asked for it. I'll tell you, I'm going to change track here slightly. I'm going to read a little something. It's not too long, but I just want to give you an idea about where this structure comes from. You see, the structure that is in place. There's no easy way of saying this to you, folks. It's not an Irish-made structure. You see, Ireland used to be run according to Brehon law. And that was what the people, we the people on the land, constructed. It was our construct. Still fiction, but it was our construct. And we were good with it, you see. Now, what you'll find is, believe it or not, if you go research a lot of the ancient peoples, Scotland, Wales, England, France, Germany, whatever, they all had the same. They all had a very, very similar ancient law to Brehon law. We just happen to know a bit more about it, I suppose. We're lucky. But they had the same thing. Now, they had different ideas about it because, as warlords grew up around doing battle and killing and supposedly winning battles, they got to decide, right? Because they had the big stick or the big sharp sword. They chopped off enough heads until apparently everybody agreed. Yeah, we'll go with what he says. Anybody disagree? You put your hand up. Yeah, I disagree. Chop. Anybody else disagree? Surprisingly, nobody else disagreed. How convenient. So, just have a listen to this. This is from Chalmers and Asquith, Constitutional Outlines of Constitutional Law, and I just thought it was interesting. This is page 108. A British settlement or settled colony means any British possession which has not been acquired by, and I'm going to spell this for you, C-E-S-S-I-O-N, cession or conquest, and is not for the time being within the jurisdiction of a legislature constituted otherwise than by virtue of the British Settlements Act 1887, yada yada yada. Dominions are colonies possessing responsible government. The ministers are responsible to the legislature of the colony in question. Hey, doesn't that kind of sound like Ireland incorporated? Ministers, a legislature, and they're responsible to the head honcho that the Crown puts in position. But if you read Irish history books, particularly the Irish history books they give you in Irish schools, they kind of leave that bit out. They're silent on that bit, right? Unless you really go do your research. A protectorate is a place outside His Majesty's dominions, placed under the protection of the British sovereign, who regulates its foreign relations. How interesting. Where a protectorate at the time of protection has an adequate settled government, it is assumed the British government allows it to legislate, subject to a veto on legislation. Otherwise, the protectorate is managed like a crown colony. And then it says, through the dignity of the native ruler, though the dignity of the native ruler is placated. Well, isn't that just special? Huh? I'm going to skip forward a bit because it just gets better and better. Colonies have been acquired by occupancy. Occupancy. Don't you get letters in the post sometimes and you look at it and it says, to the occupier? If you respond to that, are you not telling them you're a military occupant? Occupancy is when the military come over and kick their way in, right, and they stay and they don't leave, they don't go. They're now occupying militarily. They send you a letter to the occupier, you answer. Shit, you must be doing battle with somebody. Occupancy, conquest, cession, or mandate. The position of the mandatory colony is doubtful and depends on who is its sovereign. Well, in Ireland, apparently, according to the proclamation, that says sovereign and indefeasible for all the Irish men and Irish women. I mean, the proclamation didn't say for all Irish men. It said all Irish men and all Irish women. A very progressive document. A lot of very clever men put that thing together, folks. I'll continue for a bit. An act provides that it shall be lawful for His Majesty in council to establish all such, see that word such, be careful of that one, such laws and institutions, and constitute such courts and officers, and to make such arrangements for administration of justice. Administration of justice. Not to actively cause justice to come about. Just administration of justice. You see, that's commercial, right? That's equity. Administration of justice as may appear expedient to His Majesty for the peace, order, and good government of His Majesty's subjects and others within the settlement. Section 4 enables the sovereign to confer jurisdiction as to matters arising within the settlement or any court of any other British possession. Now you see, I just want you to be clear here, folks. I'm not anti-British. I'm not anti-man. I love all people from all over the world, from all over the earth. I've met fantastic people on my travels, and I've pretty much been from one side of the earth to the other. But these guys write this down on a piece of paper, and they cast their spell. It's witchcraft. It's what it is. It's just witchcraft. Spelling. They write their little spells, one hieroglyph at a time. That's what they call it when they make what they call words, right? Spelling. And then they cast them, usually into what they call a post box, and the post service brings it to your door. Well, you think you're Mr. John Doe, so you think, oh, look, this is for me. I'm special. And you open it. Uh-oh. Apparently, you have been summoned. You've been asked to go somewhere, you think. They tell you go to Court 42, yada yada, Street Road, whatever. You think you know where that is. Maybe you don't. You pull out a map, an ordnance, which is another military term, ordnance survey map. And you think you locate it. You find where it is on the map. But the map, that's the piece of paper. That's just a representation of the layout of the streets. But it's not the actual street. And you go there. And you walk in and they say to you, are you Mr. John Doe? Hell yeah. Oops. You've just lied. They know you've lied. They don't tell you. Why would they? You've just held yourself in contempt, but they don't tell you that. Why? Because they're going to benefit. So they say, we'll give them another chance. What's your address? Oh dear, you told them again. You didn't know any better, most likely. But you did tell them. You didn't question them. They didn't tell you could ask them questions. I mean, they're asking you questions. You didn't. You don't seem to think you can ask them questions back. And there's men there, if you start questioning this guy who sits up the top of the room in the high chair, there's other men there, and they'll poke you. Hey, you answer him. And he'll even tell you, I asked the questions here. He's still not saying to you, you can't ask questions. We just assume these things. We join these dots in our mind. We create this. We're creating it. I mean, they even call themselves magistrates. From majesty, magi, the magicians. It's magic, folks. It's magic. And you make it real. You grant the power. See, magic does exist. Look at what witches do, for example. Witches don't cast spells. Eye of Newton, tow a frog and chuck him into a cauldron and stir around. That's bull. That's not what happens, but they do cast spells. For example, you'll see witches on a lot of the forums, for example, around the world, particularly the free men forums seem to have attracted a lot of these, well, a lot of them call themselves white witches, turns out they're black witches, but however, they seem to attract them. And they make comments like somebody will talk about something and they'll just throw something into the mix. They'll just throw doubt into the chat box, for example. They'll just say, oh, blah, 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 that's not good. I just have questions. And then if you ask them, well, what are the questions? Oh, they never seem to know. They just have questions, apparently. They use these tactics, you see, to cast doubt amongst your minds. Not necessarily my mind. They're not after me. They know my mind is closed off to them. But they still think they can get into your mind with these, their little methods. It's basically, the modern version of witchcraft, folks, is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It's an advanced version of witchcraft, wordcraft. So they pop in these kind of like Barnum statements, if you will. You know, he was a tall, short man, a thin, fat guy. You don't know, what did they mean, a thin guy, a fat guy? What, a fat, thin guy? What the hell is that? A tall, short man. Huh? What's that mean? So, their modern version of that is, if you will, they'll do things like, particularly on the forums, a lot of these guys think they're dealing with internet trolls. I actually think most of them are practicing this form of NLP/witchcraft. And witchcraft, not necessarily witch. I mean, what do they call the Masons? Craft, Freemasons. What craft? Witchcraft, rather. So, they do all this. They cast doubt in your mind. You see, they cast this idea into a chat box. Or they make books. One book, for example, that's been a very successful book around the world, and a lot of really good, nice people, in my opinion, don't realize they've been duped by it. The book was called The Secret. It goes like this. The secret convinces you can manifest things in your life just by the power of positive thinking. So you're driving into a city, perhaps, and you decide, I'm going to manifest myself a parking space. Why? Because I've got this power of manifestation. I understand how the universe works. I know the power of attraction. It's all been explained to me, and I get it because I'm special. No, you're not. None of us are special, folks. We're all pretty much the same. Unique and special to ourselves and our family and our loved ones, but pretty much we're all pretty much the same, right? More or less. We all want the same things. So you've been convinced. You've been convicted. You now are a convict. You've been convinced that this book, The Secret, for example, has told you that you now possess this power of manifestation. And guess what? You head into the city centre and you're there manifesting yourself a car park. And guess what? There's a car parking space. You drive straight in. You think, hey, this stuff is good. Look, it works. Well, congratulations. You've just received positive affirmation. That's your first one. You now think this stuff is dandy. So you go working on something else. So let's say you think, well, I'm going to drive home now and I want my dinner to be on the table the minute I walk in the door, so I'm going to manifest that. I'm going to make that happen. Lo and behold, you walk in the door and your missus, perhaps, or your husband, depending, puts the dinner down in front of you. And you tell them how wonderful this is. Oh my God, you've got to try this, you've got to try this. Hey, let's do it for wealth. Let's attract money. Let's attract a good business. Now you see, what you don't realize is that up to the point where you read this book, these things happened every day. We have a word for it. It's called coincidence, happenstance. Stuff happens, right? Do you really think you have the power to control the universe? To get the whole entire universe to focus just on you, so you get a parking space at the particular moment when you think you've manifested it? I'm not trying to knock you, folks, but come on. That's stupid, right? That meets the definition of stupidity. It's a great way of separating you from a few quid. It's a great way to make a business. Convince people that they too can manifest using the methodology of witchcraft. It's bull, in my opinion. Okay, so now see, I'm Just Me has just put there, we wanted to buy a strip of land at the side of our house for 15 years. We watched The Secret and did our visualizations and picture board thing, and within 2 weeks the landowner approached me and offered free use of the land. We've had it for 4 years. Fine. But just because you did those exercises doesn't mean that wasn't going to happen anyway, right? So you see, even if that was going to happen anyway, well, you'd just put it down to just ordinary everyday happenstance, right? The fact that you've read the book, you're associating what that man did with your intentions and this idea of manifesting, when in reality there is no connection between the two. If there is a connection, it's because that was the plan of the universe. The universe was going to go that way. Things were going to happen that way regardless. If you think you can actually do it, well, let me see you manifest something from fresh air, something tangible. It can't be done. Try and manifest 10 things a day for 10 days. Take note, careful note, on how many of them come true. Let's do a out of 100 percentage. Let's do a score. Let's do a hit rate. Let's do a scientific experiment. A double-blind test. Because I guarantee you, if you perform a double-blind scientific test on that, it'll turn out to be a bull. Just like most ESP. Some ESP, folks, it's interesting. But pretty much most of the double-blind tests show Now, I realise this might not be a popular thing to be saying to you guys, but I think you should really question this. This idea that you can change the universe and just by thinking about it. You see, what I'm here to tell you is, as far as I'm concerned, if I want to manifest myself a table and chairs, I gotta stand up, go out, get the wood, get my tools, get into my workshop, and make the flippin' thing. That's the way the universe works. That's how I manifest things. I have to build them and make them. Manifesting is what the courts system do. They manifest by putting down hieroglyphics, designs, ink on paper and sending it to you, and lo and behold, you appear before them. Magic. Just like magic, you appear. That's why they say, oh, I see you now, or I can't see you now. When they say they can't see you, they mean they cannot see you. As I said, look, I understand that some people might find this, maybe even a little bit upsetting. Hey, that's okay. But I think you should really think it through, because these techniques, that book, The Secret, I believe it was put out there on purpose to manipulate the population who haven't fully woken up, to manipulate them into thinking they can do all these things. Now, you see, if you think you can do all these things, let's say the cops have decided to kick in your door or put you in prison, can you manifest your freedom by all this positive thinking? If that's how you feel about it, well then, why listen to people discuss all these other ways of dealing with things? I mean, let's see how many copies of The Secret have been sold. All those people how many of those people are going to end up in court? Let's see them manifest their way out of it with positive thinking. It ain't going to happen. They're going to get fined, etc., etc. Now, Ray, I love Ray Moore, folks. He's a great mate of mine. I really do like the guy. Now, Ray thinks the attraction works from the soul. Look, perhaps there is something to it. But perhaps it's only something to attract the one you're supposed to be with. But let's face it, for all we know, maybe that's already preordained, or maybe the universe was going to work that way anyway. You see, it's entirely possible we don't have free will. We've been told we have free will. Many of us believe we have free will, but yet most of us don't operate according to free will. You see, I think Ray mentions the ego there. You see, I think The Secret attracts your ego. It gets you to believe that somehow you're special, you see. It gives you a little ego lift. It gives you a little ego boost. Ooh, look, I'm special. I can manifest. That's an ego buzz, folks. No other way of looking at it. Not that I see. If you see another way of looking at this, fine. And if you want to come on and discuss it with me, hey, that's fine too. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not saying it is bullshit. I'm just saying, as far as I'm concerned, and when I try to apply logic and reason to it, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe if it does for you, wonderful. But what I am definitely telling you is that the court system, the government, the politicians, they're all using that. They all use this magic to affect their changes. Think about how they affect change. How do they manifest something? Well, 10 newsreaders in a row come along and say, oh yeah, looks like Obama's going to be elected. Even if Obama was a million miles behind in the polls. Suddenly, hey, 10 guys have said it on television. The power of manifestation. No. It's because they said it on television, because people are fecking gullible, and people think, oh shit, looks like Obama's going to get in anyway. Oh, well, I was going to vote for the other guy, but what the hell, I don't really care too much. It looks like Obama's getting in. Well, sir, what's the point in voting for the other guy? If Obama's getting in, I may as well vote for him. And they know that happens. Okay, look, I'm here, folks. If you want to join on and give me a call, if you want to have a little chin wag about something, even if you want to just tell me I'm talking shit, that's okay too. I can cope. I'm going to play another little tune now, and I haven't played them in a while. And welcome back to tnsradio.ning.com. The time is now 22:26 apparently, and 1st of the 5th, 2011 AD. And I think, is that the one? No, sorry, pardon me. Soul Kid made a comment there in the chat box. Music is manifestation. Well, I responded back saying, not unless you pick up the instrument and put your energy, as in your physical energy, into it though. And Soul Kid said, it comes to mind first though. Now that's entirely true, and I agree with that completely. And you see, that's the thing I'm trying to get across to you. You see, you can manifest. In your mind, you can manifest. But if you, like, hey, if I want to manifest a table and chairs, I got to do it in my mind first. But to end up with the actual table and chairs, then I got to go chop down wood, right? They use the same process. I mean, I'm not knocking this, fellas. I'm not, I'm just saying, well, I probably am a bit. But I'm not really trying to, I'm not trying to upset anybody here. What I'm trying to say to you is draw the similarity between this idea of manifestation. They're trying to sell it to you. Well, they have sold it to you by the million, right? In books, videos, yada, yada, yada. We'd love it to be true, you see. I'd love it to be true. Shit, if I thought I could just manifest a better world without actually going out there and doing it, I'd sit at home and become like a Buddhist monk or whatever, meditate on it for years on end. And that would be wonderful, right? If we all could do that and manifest a better world that way. It's not going to happen, folks. We have to actually get up off our arses and make a better world. We got to make it. We've got to do it. But yes, the music might come to your mind first. The idea will come to your mind first. But who's to say where the idea came from? I mean, when Einstein thought up E equals to mc squared, did the idea just arrive in his mind? Did he actually use logic, reason and intellect to plough through all these notions and ideas and to associate things and to place things together and to see if they compare? I mean, Robert Anton Wilson, as a lot of people have read as well. I know he comes up with a lot of this stuff too, and he talks about, as Manet said there, meditation equals sitting around waiting for good luck. Well, I kind of agree with that one. Happenstance, good fortune, good luck, call it whatever you will. I mean, it's like, what was the line I heard once? It's bad luck to be superstitious. Right? Maybe. Because if you are superstitious, or if you adopt a superstition unto yourself, if you convince yourself walking under a ladder is bad luck, well, one day maybe you'll walk under a ladder, something bad will happen, and you'll say, see? You've just had a positive affirmation. Walking under ladders is bad luck. Well, you could look at that another way, right? Walking under ladders is incredibly stupid. Because usually there's going to be some dude at the top of the ladder working. If you walk under the ladder, you might distract him. He might drop something on you. Spill water, paint, drop a hammer on your head, etc., etc. You're putting yourself potentially in harm's way. So it's not bad luck to walk under a ladder. It's stupid. Mostly. Unless you've checked and you say, well, there's nobody up there. Fine. Is it bad luck to walk under a ladder when there's nobody there? Who knows? Right? Has there ever been a scientific examination, or has anybody ever tested that theory? Wow. There's one from Manet. I never knew that Manet. Buddhists bless money. Wow. That is interesting. I'll check that one out. Buddhists bless money. That is interesting. So, okay. The main thrust of what I was trying to talk to you tonight about was really to just, to try and explain, using logic and reason as best I could, the system as is, the way I see it, and the way other people have explained it to me down through the years and the bits I read in their material. You know, I mean, I read a lot of the legal books and their publications, and as far as I can tell, that seems to be precisely what it says. Particularly that book, folks, if you get that book, How Judges Reason. Oh, that's a doozy. That's a doozy. It's actually available for download on Google Books somewhere. I think you can get it. Now, you see, the reason I went into the whole secret thing and the witchcraft thing was because I have seen evidence of this and these people joining sites, and they get into the site and they usually start PMing people privately. They don't do a whole lot on the public chat box. They do it all in the background, you see, and they try to spread poisonous rumours about people on the site, and they try and stir up trouble. They try to manifest chaos and trouble and discord. And they have been very, very successful doing so on lots and lots of websites. People call them trolls sometimes. Sorry, Ray just said, don't forget that PM, Vin. What PM, Ray? Let me have a look. Hang on. I'll just check. Ray sent me a PM. Oh, yeah. Okay, Ray has, he's writing a stage play at the moment, and we're going to do a recording. It's going to be all about the famine. So Ray is looking for victims. And no, I don't mean volunteers. I mean, if it's a Ray play, he'll be a victim. He's looking for budding actresses or actors. Now, how we're going to do this, folks, we're going to record over Skype. So everybody will read their part over Skype. We'll record it, put it together into the play, and we'll be adding all the sound effects and all that stuff later. But Ray's in the middle of writing it. So if you're interested in being part of this, send Ray a PM. Just let him know you're interested. So to get back to what I was saying. There are people who join sites and they don't have the genuine interest that maybe you have. They join and they pretend they have these problems similar to you, and then they befriend you and send you private messages, and before you know it, they're trying to tell you, watch out for this guy, he's a bad one, watch out for such and such, they're a bad one, etc., etc. And you see, it's real easy to bring somebody down using these methods, folks. I mean, I'm no angel. I've often said it on here. You know, you look into my past, folks. Pretty much people can accuse me of anything, and, you know, look, if you look into my past, hey, shit, I've probably done it. As I said, I'm no angel. Never claimed to be. But I am, I was about to use an expletive there, I am bloody determined. I'm a determined father. I am determined that you at least get to hear and at least get to know as much as you can about the system in place so that you can actually make an informed decision as to whether you want to keep giving your energy to it or not. I'm not telling you not to, I'm not telling you to. I'm in the passive pose here. Okay? So you might look into my past, you might find something and say, yeah, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, Vinnie Byrne was a son of a bitch. Possibly. And you could say, oh, people don't change. That's right. They develop and grow and alter and, you know, but some characteristics stay with you. Sure. But I've been here on this microphone for almost 2 years now, I think. And I've yet to be challenged on the logic and the reason behind what I'm saying. Nobody ever, ever has said or demonstrated using logic and reason to show anything I've ever said to you about how the system works, how it operates, and how it goes together, and how it affects you. Nobody's ever told me or even suggested that this information I'm presenting, which is not my information, it's a combination of all sorts of information from all sorts of writers, mostly legal writers, I might add. Nobody's ever said, no, you got that wrong, Vin, or that's bull. Not so far. So look, I'm here. It's, what time is it now? Just gone 10:30. It'd be great if somebody called in for a chinwag over Skype. Vincent Temp 1 is the Skype. And you can call on 00353 443309 if you want to use a landline. Call in. If you want, I'll call you back. If you want to have a chinwag, it'll be free of charge to you. In the meantime, I am actually going to play another tune. I just want to look up something else in a book. I just want to make sure I get the right information when I'm presenting it to you. So in the meantime, yeah, I'm going to play this one. Haven't played this one in a while. Here's something I wanted to read this for you. So I had it marked in the book, but I hadn't got a bookmark in the book. This is from the first book of jurisprudence by Pollock. Now, if you haven't got this book, folks, and if you haven't read this, it's available for download on the internet. This is a 1923 edition. Pardon me. This is from chapter 8, entitled Claims of Persons on Persons. Okay? Claims of persons on persons. Relation of obligations to property. So I'm going to skip through it because this bit is the one I want to hear. Want you to hear, rather. The relations of husband and wife and parent and child give rise to duties and claims which are strictly personal. But these are not separate and independent duties. They are incident to the continuous relation of the parties. See that word continuous there? Important. They cannot be exhausted by any enumeration of particulars. Pardon me. And they cannot be brought to an end except... I'm going to read that again. They cannot be brought to an end except by the expiration or determination of the personal relation to which they are incident. Okay? Now, just to try and, well, I'll continue a little bit and then I'll put that in plain language for you, if you will. The advantages and benefits arising from them are not recognized by law, not by modern law at any rate, as a possible subject matter of sale, barter, or traffic of any kind, or of adequate pecuniary estimation. Now, get that book, folks. Download it. It's available for download on the site. First book of jurisprudence, chapter 8. Read that. And you tell me how exactly they go about taking people's children from them and getting them into state custody. Huh? How are they doing it? They have to say that the relationship has expired. It's a dead relationship. And yet, the parents of these children being taken are pleading and begging, don't take my child, don't take my child. And they say, oh, the relationship has ended, it's dead. You got to read this stuff, folks. You got to see it. I mean, it goes on. Besides all this, the family relations belong to a large extent to the sphere of moral as distinct from that of legal justice and right. Really? You think somebody want to tip them on the shoulder some stage and let them know that, wouldn't you? By the way, do you realise you wrote this in a book that you hold in great esteem, Mr. Legal Man, Mr. Wiggy, sitting up there on the bench, huh? Do you realise you have this stuff written in books? We can hold you to this. You put it in the book. This is a book everybody reads when you go to law school. How many of them seem to forget? Courts of law can deal only with the grosser infractions and shortcomings that occur in family affairs. Apparently not anymore. It continues. It is true that the Church of Rome has attempted, and in the Middle Ages did habitually accomplish, a great extension of formal doctrine and jurisdiction as regards marriage and sexual morality generally. The results are matter of history and appear to the English lay mind at any rate to stand as warning rather than example. And there's a little footnote down here. The remedies allowed by the common law for violation of marital or parental rights are directed only to certain incidents of the right, not the right as a whole. That make any sense to you? I doubt it. I'm going to read it again. The remedies allowed by the common law for violation of marital or parental rights are directed, you'd have to wonder by whom, only to certain incidents of the right, not the right as a whole. Okay, so to try and turn that Japanese English into actual plain English, if you will. So they're saying, for example, now this is under common law, if you have a duty to feed your child, right? Who the hell would argue with that? Not only do you have a duty to feed your child, but you might not recognize that as a duty. You might say, well, no, I don't have a duty to feed my child. I have to feed my child. Why? Well, because I love them. They're my child. They say, oh, but that's a duty. Well, perhaps you could look at it as a duty, but to me, it's an act of love. Well, is it your duty to love somebody? No. If you love somebody, you love them, right? Have you ever noticed that they can't put love into any of these books, folks? They can't put it in. They don't know love, these people. Not when they put those wigs on, not when they put the uniform on, not when they put the black cap on. They're operating outside of love. Charlie Veitch. Let's get to Charlie Veitch. I wanted to get to this. A lot of people are very shocked and surprised and stunned. Oh my God, look what happened to Charlie Veitch. Pre-crime. He was arrested, Minority Report, yada, yada, yada. All this sort of stuff is said about him. Although, he did make a YouTube video, folks, and he did say it was his intention to go and disrupt the proceedings. I mean, the YouTube video is still up there. You can go and look at it. So, the whole pre-crime thing doesn't exactly sit there. Now, even if you think it does, which there are elements of it, I suppose, that does, because he didn't actually do anything wrong, right? There's no actual injured party. Well, shit, there's no injured party when you break the speed limit, right? There's no injured party when you park in a traffic bay, right? Without a permission slip, ticket, shit, whatever you want to call it. Well, what's the difference? What's the difference between what happened to Charlie Veitch and a parking ticket? And I'm here to tell you, as far as I can tell, there's absolutely no difference. None whatsoever. If you can find a difference, by all means let me know, but I can't find any difference. Comments on the chat box, please. Anybody think of a difference between what happened to Charlie Veitch and being arrested for not paying a penalty fine or a speeding ticket or flipping whatever, when there's no injured party, when you didn't commit an actual crime? Breaking the speed limit's not a crime, folks. They don't even say it's a crime. It's not a crime. They know it's not a crime, because you can't break it. Number one, if you broke it, then they'd have to create a new one every time, right? If I break a glass, I have to create a new glass. I mean, the sign doesn't break. The road doesn't break. The car doesn't break. What breaks? Nothing breaks. Nothing goes crack, wallop, bang, boom. Nothing happens. I'm not saying it's a good idea to go speeding all around the place, or high speed, or fast, or whatever you want to call it. Alacrity. I'm not saying it's a good idea. But if you go from A to B, and you get there in, what you consider to be good time, and you haven't hurt nobody, and they arrest you, and they say, oh, we grab your body. They grab a hold of the body. They don't take the name straight away, you see. They grab the body first, and then they ask for the name. They want the 9/10 of the law on their side, so they grab the body. That's possession is 9/10 of the law, right? They grab the body, they now have the 9/10 of the law. And then they ask you for the final 10%. What's your name, boy? You see? And Charlie Veitch, as they just said in the chat box there, he handed it over. He went, yep, Charlie Veitch. They got him banged to rights, folks. But there's no real difference, as I said, between that and a parking ticket. Other than it's presented to you in the internet as a pre-crime. But it's not actually pre-crime. Any more than a speeding ticket is pre-crime. Any more than parking in a loading bay is pre-crime, when you're not actually in anybody's way, and when you were ready to move before anybody else came in there, or whatever. There's no difference. What's the difference between what happened to Charlie Veitch and not having a TV license? Who gets hurt? A civil wrong and a criminal act is not the same. Not the same thing, right? A civil wrong and a criminal act. Well, we know he didn't commit any criminal act, so he must have committed a civil wrong. Well, did he? He did express an intent, right? And they do say the law's all about intent. So what if they missed? He did express an intent, but he didn't carry it out. I mean, if you say you're going to go and rob a bank tomorrow, but then you wake up tomorrow and you think, you know what, I can't be arsed. I'm not going to rob a bank after all. I've changed my mind. And they find out you were talking in your sleep. Maybe, in 20 years' time, maybe the government have listening devices in your house and you're lying in your bed and you're talking in your sleep going, I'm going to rob the bank tomorrow, I'm going to rob the bank tomorrow, I'm going to rob the bank tomorrow. And then you wake up and they arrest you and they pull you in. What, you said you were going to rob a bank. Huh? Did I? Yes, you did. Look, here's the recording we have you. You were saying so in your sleep. But I was asleep. Doesn't matter. You said it. You did say it, right? You can't say you didn't say it, because you did say it. But what was your intent? The mens rea, the guilty mind. Actus rea, mens rea. Somebody ought to remind those officers that came to arrest Charlie Veitch, and anybody who's writing a parking ticket, and anybody who's arresting somebody for non-display of tax, insurance, NCT, yada, yada, yada. Actus rea, mens rea. Go look at flipping up. Look it up. Intention. Hey, just because it's your intention to do something doesn't mean you'll actually go do it. Now, hey, Charlie Veitch probably would have. Maybe he would have. In fact, I'd say it was very, very likely that he would have done what he said he was going to do. But they want to now examine whether that's criminal or whatever. But Charlie Veitch, let's face it, folks, you might love the guy, you might be indifferent to him. But he didn't actually get to commit any crime because they intervened, you see. It was an intervention. And he gave them everything they need. He knows some of this stuff. I mean, I know he's been on TNS radio at some stage, and I'm assuming he's listened once or twice. If he hasn't, well, he's going to be in want of some decent information, I think. So, I don't know, maybe they've released him again. Oh, actually, I think they did release him because he was on Adam versus the Man on YouTube, yeah, talking about it. So he has been released. But apparently now he's got a court date, and he seems happy that he's got a court date. So, well, I guess maybe he's happy. Yes, Wild Hunt, that may be true, pre-crime. But again, I mean, does a parking ticket not equal pre-crime? Think about it. Parking ticket, nobody got hurt. Where's the feckin' crime? And yeah, you get brought in front of a court and a jury, or not a jury, but you get brought in front of a court, right? And there's a policy enforcement guy, and they're just enforcing a policy. Yeah, they enforce the policy on the people who are a party to the policy. Are you a party to the policy? Are you a party to that contract? If not, what the hell are you doing there? What I'm saying to you folks is it's exactly the same thing. What happened to Charlie Veitch and a parking ticket, legally / lawfully, no difference. None whatsoever. Same gig. Okay. Let me think, was there anything else I wanted to cover? Yes, there is. The mathematically perfect economy, folks. I'm hoping to, there's a chap who's been very, very generous, and he's offered the use of a massive marquee for the day that we can stick up in a field. There's a couple of people who have offered me fields to use for the day. Offered the use of a field, rather. Not the actual field to me. So we're going to be doing the mathematically perfect economy. The event is in the chat box there. Mike Montagna said he'd give me a hand making sure I have everything squared in my mind and that I have the methodology worked out, how to go about it in the demonstration. The first one, folks, it may go a bit arseways here and there. We don't know till we try it. I don't know I think it's possible to demonstrate it physically. Won't really know till we go and do the first one. So that's why I really need as many people to show up as possible. 22nd of May. So 21 days time. Need as many people to show up and to be willing to kind of be patient with me and what I'm trying to do on the day. I'm putting a lot of effort into this intellectually to try and work out how to get you all to interact, because I want to also combine the mathematically perfect economy, and I want to stick somebody in the middle whose sole job is to try and to attempt to commit as much fraud in the system as possible, to show you how he will spring up out of the system so that you'll recognise the fraud immediately, or as soon as. I think that's important, rather than me just try to demonstrate to you a mathematically perfect economy with nobody trying to pull any fast ones. Well, I think it'd be better basically if I can put a fraudster in there as well on purpose to show you how a fraudster would appear. The glow-in-the-dark neon sign would come up around them very quickly too. Also, I want to show you that if there is a disagreement, that how the system of Brehon law used correctly, the principles rather of Brehon law used correctly, can resolve the issue with both parties in agreement. And to also show you and demonstrate on the day that this can all be done under a completely voluntary association with everybody who interacts. And the idea is that as we go through the speeded up years, if you will, of interactions and transactions, I'll have like a cardboard box and a roll of carpet, and say, as we stack cardboard boxes, they will represent schools and hospitals, and as the carpet gets rolled out, that will represent motorways, etc., etc. From the voluntary contributions that the people taking part in the economy are going to give willingly to the government. And I want to show you just how much that the government will end up with, and how powerful the people's government will be when the people are in charge of it, and how they will never lose control of it. So that's my intention. So it's a bit more than mathematically perfect economy. I kind of want to do the whole thing in one go, in one day. And if you attend, hopefully it'll work out. And when you leave, you'll be under no illusions how the whole thing goes together. You'll feel it, you'll see it, you'll be able to touch it and get through it. Thanks, Andrew, for that comment. I haven't heard that in a while. The feckin' breaking. Okay, how are we doing time-wise? Right, there you go. Bang on, nearly 11 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to quit out, and I'm going to quit out, folks, with this one from the Beastie Boys, just because I love it. It's called Sabotage. So that's it from me for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to tnsradio.ning.com. I'm known as Ancient O'Brien of the ancient Clan O'Brien on the land known as Ireland, or the Sovereign Republic of Ireland. Call it what you will. I like to call it the Big Ball, and we're all standing on the Big Ball, and all we have to do is live in peace and harmony. And let's face it, that shouldn't really be that difficult, right? I mean, it shouldn't be difficult to stop killing people, should it? Shouldn't be that difficult for, men who think they're soldiers to stop shooting people, stop putting holes in other people. It's actually quite difficult to put holes in people, because they don't stand still when you're trying to do it, right? Hell of a lot easier just to not bother, right? Try and live in peace and harmony. Ihawa, August Call us off.